talking to you. We about to have a house party. Welcome to the Re-Emancipation of Social Dance podcast, a prelude to the world premiere of an immersive dance theater experience created by me, Raja Feather Kelly, with Philadelphia's finest, Yolanda Wisher. Listen in as 5 multifaceted dancers tell the evolving story of social dance and the impact that it's had on the people and cultures of Philadelphia. Come on in and let's move.
Now we're getting somewhere near the late 40s and early 50s. And then younger people that I recall began to start dancing, doing the bop. And that's when I remember the house parties and things. We had a thing back then called pay parties. Now pay parties was a thing where when unemployment was so bad for different people in different neighborhoods, they had to find ways to raise money, and for natural things like food and upkeep, and we would call them pay parties or rent parties. Okay, because several families, the husbands weren't working, wives sometimes were single parents, and they would utilize their homes with records, and then they would sell booze, they would sell dinners, and they in turn would make their homes sort of like a club or a place to go to. But yet it was still local. You could come out the house and go next door. You could go around the corner or go down the street. Now, a lot of this naturally was, especially the selling of the booze, was illegal, but it wasn't for the purpose of really, trying to get people drunk or anything. It was to set up a format for a social thing. But the key to it was the dancing, because there you could let loose from your frustrations of not working or your frustrations from being overworked, and you had a place to go, let off steam. Instead of, like a lot of the local clubs charge you $5 or so to get in, you could take the $5 and go to a house party, and you could have a couple drinks at dinner and have your choice of people to dance with.
Episode 1, Emancipate a Sense of Wonder and Play, Germaine Ingram. A recovering lawyer, archivist, choreographer, and dancer, Germaine Ingram is a cultural force in Philadelphia. Germaine was in fact involved with ODUNDE's Hucklebuck to Hip Hop African-American Social Dance project in the 1990s, a critical reference for the re-emancipation of social dance. Now, in her 70s, Germaine holds a great deal of information about the lineage of social dance, concert dance, street dance, and movement in general. Germaine shares her childhood encounter with the living mythology of Daddy Grace, a celebrity preacher of the 1930s to 50s who molded freedom through flamboyance on the streets of Philadelphia. She talks about circles of genius and what it means to lay the groundwork for those who are younger. What lingers with me is her passion for improvisation and taking creative risks. So here it is. Take a listen.
My name is Germaine Ingram. I currently live in in Philadelphia. I bought a house in 1980 in what I intended would be North Philadelphia, but now they tell me it's Center City. What do? I do lots of things. I tell people I'm a recovered lawyer. I practiced law for like 30 years, but I stopped doing that more than 20 years ago. And so I'm a full-time lawyer. I'm a cultural strategist, I guess, and an artistic provocateur. I'm interested in seeing how the artistic process can stimulate an environment that allows people to show up as their full selves, allows society to exhibit caring and nurturance for people, and see the artistic process create space for Black people to live a life of liveliness and nurturance. What is improvisation? How what are the habits of mind and heart that are central to improvisation? Because a lot of stuff passes as improvisation and it really isn't. So it's sort of what are the values that are associated with the improvisation in terms of the risk taking and embracing not knowing and deep listening. Those are some of the things, and how do we use these values of improvisation to inform how we live as a society? Those are things that I'm really interested in, and how we use the artistic practice, the artistic process, as a means of informing other types of engagements and relationships. I'm involved in a project right now as a provocateur. That has the radical aim of transforming classroom K-12 practice by infusing into that the values of the artistic process. How do we start with a big idea? How do you develop in a classroom essential questions? How do you engage kids as researchers? How do you bring kids into as an artist, I think about my relationship to the audience is to bring them into my curiosity. How does a teacher do that? How does the teacher, dig deep into his or her own curiosity and invite kids into that and encourage kids to dig deeply into their curiosity and for that teacher to move toward that? I mean, those are the things that really excite me about the role of art in society. Philadelphia, Black people and history, sort of the arc of history, have been really central to my work. And in terms of process, as I mentioned before, improvisation, sort of this idea, I'm really compelled by this idea of embracing not knowing. There's the sculptor Anne Hamilton gave this really wonderful commencement speech. I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, I don't know. But she talks about the power of not knowing, that you can start across a room and you find yourself traveling for 10 years. And how do we embrace that journey? And the importance of understanding that not knowing is not ignorance. There's a whole body of values values and habits of mind and heart that go along with being able to embrace not knowing, and it has to do with trust, knowing your craft, deep listening. It's all those things. It's all those things associated with improvisation. So those things, those process elements seem very closely connected to me. Not knowing, embracing not knowing, and improvisation. Improvisation is really about a process. It's a process that derives from a set of values, a set of habits of mind and heart that are represented by openness, deep listening, risk-taking, vulnerability, but also craft. There's rigor there. A lot of people think that improvisation is just doing whatever, but it's not that at all. There's true rigor. There's true rigor there, and so it takes real effort to develop the capacity to be an improviser and to use improvisation as a foundation for artistic practice and life practice. Yeah, every day I get up and I look at, I look at my calendar, and there are usually a bunch of meetings on it. So, the question for me is how I bring those habits of improvisation, those habits of mind and heart, to each of those moments. How in a Zoom meeting with you, or how in a live meeting, or how how in reading somebody's grant application, or helping someone with a grant application, or helping someone sort of construct an artistic idea. I bring those values of deep listening, openness, vulnerability, and so on to that space.
Hey, you. It's me again. Yeah, I'm talking to you. We're having a house party, and you're invited. Get your fit ready for the world premiere of the Re-Emancipation of Social Dance, Thursday through Saturday, June 20th through 22nd at 7 p.m. Christ Church Neighborhood House in Old City, Philadelphia.
To some extent, I think re-emancipation is a misnomer. Because social dance has always been a place, to my mind, that has been a place to find freedom. And so I think that what this project can do is not so much re-emancipate social dance, but show how social dance has consistently been a place of freedom for Black people. So it may mean more that, how has social dance been this environment of fugitivity and freedom at a time when people have felt that they're enclosed and constrained. I don't know that we can teach it, but I think I think we have the capacity to create environments where people can be in touch with the inherent inclination to want to feel, to want to experience freedom. I mean, right now, I was talking to you earlier about working in this project we call the Picasso Project, that has the sort of radical intention of using the artistic process to transform classroom practice. And one of the questions we've been, sort of digging into recently is how do we inspire wonder in classrooms? I think, kids have a natural sense of wonder, but it gets, it gets stripped out of them. And part of that has to do with the fact that they don't, what gets stripped out of them is this feeling that they don't have the freedom to express the awe, the wonder that is inherently theirs. So, emancipation is about, in this project, is about first helping teachers to be able to truly experience awe and wonder, because they can't share that experience unless they can appreciate it themselves, and also create the experiences in their classrooms where children can experience awe and wonder. And I think that's really very much related to sort of emancipation of those spaces. Emancipation of those spaces that are constrained by, the strictures of uniform curricula, state testing, these book bans that are taking place. I mean, what we're seeing now is more than ever the stripping away of the potential for classrooms for this place where kids can understand freedom, awe, and wonder. I can't say the first time, but I'll tell you a time. Oh, my earliest memory. You asked me to go back a long way. Well, I don't know that this is my earliest experience, but one experience, I lived down the street from, when I was young, in North Philadelphia. My family lived down the street from a house of prayer. And periodically, Daddy Grace would come to Philadelphia from New York to visit his flock here. And when Daddy Grace would visit, it was like something I'd never seen before and haven't seen since. Daddy Grace was an evangelist who came up from the South. He was, sort of the same era as Father Divine, who were using spiritual community as a means of uplift for Black people. So it was, they were building communities of self-help for Black people and really seeking to build a body of wealth in Black communities. Bodies of wealth owned by Black people in Black communities. Daddy Grace was based in New York. Father Divine was based here in Philadelphia. But Daddy Grace had several churches here in Philadelphia that continued to exist. And when Daddy would come, Daddy was this, just his physical presence was amazing. He had fingernails that were, maybe a foot long. And he would wear these long gowns of many colors, that went from his shoulders to the street, and he had long flowing hair. And when he would come to the house of prayer, the congregation would just do everything to show their reverence to him. He would ride up, when we would know that Daddy Grace was coming because they light up the cross on the top of the church, and Daddy would arrive in a limousine, and they would roll out like a red carpet, to the limousine that he would walk from the limousine up to the entryway of the church, and there was always, there was always music, and the bands would, just circle, I remember like Hold That Tiger, the bands would be playing this brass music. That was just incredible, and we hear it now, and when we go on YouTube and hear the House of Prayer trombones, that's what, that harks back to those times in the 1950s, when that's what was happening in those church settings. And they would always have some, sort of unusual means of collecting money for Daddy, it might be a money tree, and people would hang, money from the tree, or it might be baskets, bushel baskets, and there'd be a money line, and people would go round and round the sanctuary, starting with the lowest denomination, and you keep going up in denomination until women would throw their pocketbooks in the bushel basket at the end, and one unusual thing is that Bill Bailey, Pearl Bailey's brother, who was an extraordinary tap dancer, was a member of the House of Prayer. And one of these times when Daddy came, Bill said, I'm dancing for Daddy tonight. And years later, when I didn't start tap dancing until I was in my mid-30s. I had been a lawyer for 10 years before I started tap dancing. But then, it was only then that I realized that when I was in high school, going downtown once a week to 15th and Pine, to the home of my violin teacher, whose name was Mary Romig. The man who was at the reception desk was Bill Bell. It was such a, and I didn't know at that time. Who would have known that years later, Bill Bailey was Bill Bailey would be one of the people that I most revered in an art form that I came to love. There were so many things. First of all, people were doing something that seemed to defy what was, considered proper behavior. I went to a Baptist church, and I went to a Baptist church at 10th and Wallace, and people used to talk about how Reverend Cunningham gave these little lectures that that he said were sermons. So to go to this place of just sort of great ecstasy, and just sort of the sonic, just sort of the sonic element of it was, this place of wonder, that you couldn't hear that anyplace else. That kind of ecstatic expression, that was a unique place. Emancipate a sense of wonder and play.
And now we've come to the end of the party. Thanks for dancing with us. The Re-Emancipation of Social Dance podcast is produced by Dr. Bruce Campbell Jr. with Nia Benjamin and Yolanda Wisher for Intercultural Journeys. For more information about the podcast and project, visit reemancipatedance.org. Special thanks to ODUNDE Inc. and Philadelphia Folklore Project for their permission to use archival audio from the Hucklebuck to Hip Hop African American Social Dance Project. The Re-Emancipation of Social Dance has been supported by the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage. The views expressed are those of the artist and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage or the Pew Charitable Trusts. Now, you don't have to go home, but you got to get the heck up out of here. Peace.